The door slammed so hard the walls shook, and right then I knew something was killing 7-year-old Aubrey Brooks. That morning should have been perfect. Golden Ohio sunlight poured across the marble floors of the Brooks mansion. Every room glowed, except one. Aubrey's bedroom stayed ice-cold, silent, wrong. She lay on her huge white bed, tiny and pale, her lips turning blue-gray, her eyes losing their sparkle a little more every day. I'm Liana Shore, the new nanny from Cleveland, Ohio, and this is the story that still keeps me awake at night. Jonathan Brooks was on the Forbes list. He lost his wife giving birth to Aubrey and never forgave himself. So he worked and worked, private jets, boardrooms, billion-dollar deals, anything to not sit in the silence where his little girl was fading. Doctors flew in from Johns Hopkins, Mayo, Cleveland Clinic. No one could explain it. Autoimmune, neurological, psychosomatic. They pumped her full of steroids and oxygen masks. Nothing worked. She was dying in slow motion. My very first night, I sat beside her bed. No one told me she hadn't spoken in 8 weeks. I whispered, "Aubrey, honey, can you hear me?" She turned her little head, slow like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and looked straight into my eyes. With a raspy voice barely louder than a breath, she said, "It hurts to breathe in here." Then she closed her eyes and slipped back into sleep. Ich set frozen. That was the last sentence anyone heard from her for the next 3 weeks. 2:17 a.m. The pulse oximeter on her finger started screaming. I ran in. 82% oxygen. Her lips were purple. I scooped her up, blankets and all, and carried her into the hallway. 60 seconds later the numbers climbed. 89, 93, 97. I stood in the dark corridor holding her, watching the screen rise the farther we got from that bedroom. I knew then, whatever was hurting her lived inside those 4 walls. One evening she actually had a good day, color in her cheeks, playing in the garden. Bedtime came. Jonathan scooped her up to carry her to her room. Aubrey suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck and started sobbing, the first tears she'd shed in months. "Daddy, please, I'll be good, I promise. Don't make me sleep in there tonight." He froze in the doorway, her tiny body shaking against his $5,000 suit. That was the moment something cracked inside him. The next day, sunlight flickered across the white carpet. Aubrey drifted into another uneasy nap. My gut screamed, "Look deeper." I turned off every light in the room, got flat on my stomach, phone flashlight on. I slowly lifted the bed skirt. At first nothing but dust. Then the beam caught it. Black, wet, spreading like veins across the hardwood. Thick, velvet-like toxic mold crawling up the wall behind the headboard. Hidden for years. My stomach dropped to the floor. Jonathan walked in right then, still in his tie. I couldn't speak. I just pointed the flashlight. He dropped to his knees, literally collapsed, pressed his forehead to the contaminated carpet, and started sobbing so hard his whole body shook. I should have known. This house is 90 years old. I should have checked the basement. I almost killed my own daughter. We carried Aubrey to the guest wing that same hour. The certified mold team found the entire basement and HVAC system black with stachybotrys. The pediatric pulmonologist at Cleveland Clinic confirmed 1 more month and the lung damage would have been irreversible. Within 12 hours of breathing clean air, her oxygen stayed at 99% on room air. Within 24 hours the blue left her lips. Within 48 hours she asked for chocolate ice cream. 3 days later I pushed her on the garden swing. She threw her head back and laughed, a full, loud, healthy belly laugh that echoed across the yard. Jonathan was on the porch with his coffee. He heard it. The mug slipped from his hand, shattered on the stone. He didn't even notice. He just stood there crying because he had forgotten what his daughter's laugh sounded like. 1 month later I was braiding her hair on the porch. She looked up at me with those big bright eyes and said, "Miss Liana, thank you for hearing me when I couldn't talk." I had to walk away so she wouldn't see me cry. Jonathan quit the company that week, sold 60% of his shares, gutted the bedroom to the studs, rebuilt the basement, remediated every inch of the mansion. And Aubrey, she runs now. She laughs. She lives. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't under the bed. They're the things we never think to look for. Children don't always scream when they need help. Sometimes they just fade. Healing doesn't always come from the best doctors or the fattest bank account. Sometimes it comes from one person who cares enough to listen and look a little deeper. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, drop a comment, share it with every parent you know, and subscribe to Moralist so you never miss a story that might just save a life. This is Liana Shore. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one. Red Heart.